All right, so the third wave is not here yet, but the numbers are telling us it could be here sooner rather than later. While the health sector rushes to roll out vaccinations and make sure that hospitals are ready, business is preparing as well. And I'm joined by the CEO of Business Leadership SA, Busisiwe Mavuso. Good evening, and thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate it. I'm sure that business must be very worried, obviously from a health point of view, but also just in terms of keeping people's businesses open and livelihoods on the go. Should government be considering some tough restrictions?
Absolutely. Good evening, Sally, and thank you very much for inviting us. So we are clear from a business perspective that we have learned very credible lessons as a country from the past two waves that we've had, and we now have better clarity on the appropriate interventions for protecting lives and livelihoods. I don't think South Africa can afford to make the mistake that it did before, where we elevated the health crisis above the economic crisis. We have seen the impact of what that has done to the economy. We're sitting in an environment where our economy contracted by 7% last year, so we cannot have a repeat of that again. So all we want to highlight as BLSA is that now we have an endowment as businesses of safe operating capacity, which was not present before. We now have clarity in terms of the safe operating standards, that have been implemented by businesses over the last two waves, and with the experience that we have gained during that period. So we are just putting caution out there, especially to government, to say that the restrictions that are going to be implemented right now cannot be those that are actually going to further disadvantage the economy, and those that are actually going to further lead to job losses, and those that are going to put businesses in further jeopardy than what we have seen.
And you're being very clear, saying curfews, no, they don't work. Alcohol ban, not a good idea. Cigarette ban, not a good idea. Or if you absolutely have to, give us fair warning. Keep it limited. Keep it regionalized. Why do those measures not work in your view?
If you look at the three previous bans that the alcohol industry, for instance, has had to endure, you would see what that has costed from an economic standpoint. I mean, we saw what was highlighted by the alcohol industry. We saw the investment that has been lost to South Africa due to those bans. We saw the disruption to operations when government would actually, ban these industries, especially the alcohol industry, without giving any clear end in sight, as it were. So we are now saying, if you are going to impose restrictions, let there be clarity, in terms of what end dates are we working with, but let there be clarity in terms of, what would be the indicators that government would wait to see before they lift bans again, because that allows businesses to plan properly. It allows businesses to actually ensure that their cash flow management, is adequate and done appropriately so that they can be able to continue operating even during shutdown. And it really allows businesses to actually prevent their operations being in distress. And we're thinking that this kind of responsibility is one that government is actually going to have to be clear on. I think that it's clear, Sally, that we have had very clear successes and failures in terms of what we've done in the previous two bans. And I think we've seen the successes and failures of other countries. So there is no reason, therefore, why we shouldn't use the evidence that exists and apply it to how we are going to go into the third wave. We cannot continue the same mistakes that we did before. Our economy cannot take it. Sally, we're sitting in an environment where the unemployment is sitting at 42% in terms of the expanded definition, where you have more people that are unemployed than those that are employed in all the provinces except Gauteng and the Western Cape. You're sitting with more than 60% youth unemployment. So any decisions and any restrictions that will be imposed by government that will further plunge the economy into deeper crisis. We are saying as business, let's have these conversations, because from where we are sitting as industries, we do have ideas and proposals in terms of what is it that business should be bringing to the table to try and actually eliminate and maybe reduce some of the health crises that could be imposed by some of our trading patterns, as it were.
So the health minister is telling us we're not in the third wave yet, and we understand from looking at the numbers from a technical point of view
third wave, there is no reason why we shouldn't start planning, as Gauteng, that should the third wave hit, what should be the interventions that we should put in place and what types of protocols and restrictions we should actually put in place. So we shouldn't wait for disaster to hit. We have seen this play out twice before, so there is no reason, therefore, for us to start running around, when the numbers reach the levels, that are actually going to put us in that wave. So what we are calling for as business is engagements with government to say that with the numbers doing what they are doing, to what extent can business and government come together to try and find optimal solutions of how we're actually going to deal with the third wave, and how does business meaningfully come to the party? Because remember, the COVID crisis is not a government crisis. It is a South African crisis. So business has a responsibility to say, what role do we play and how do we meaningfully ensure that both lives and livelihoods can be protected.
Look, and that is a crucial aspect of business's role. Also, of course, I would imagine that BLSA wants to help government when it comes to this vaccine rollout. We know it's being spearheaded by government, but we also know there's a huge role for the private sector. I was speaking to Keith Clitty of Western Cape Health, and he was saying that the national plan actually does envisage, ultimately, that we'll have pharmacies giving out these vaccines. We'll have these small businesses who are able to administer these vaccines. Talk to me about the role that business wants to play and is going to play in terms of the vaccine rollout.
So the role that has been played by business through Business for South Africa, I think, has really been for the entire rollout of the vaccine program, in the country, because we understand that the vaccination program and the success thereof is critical to the economic recovery of South Africa. So we've been working with the National Department of Health, we've been working with the presidency to ensure that the plan that we have in sight, is a plan that is actually going to ensure that our economic recovery efforts are not going to be undermined. So we therefore have, to your point, pledged vaccination sites as business. We have pledged resources to say that how does business meaningfully come to the party? How do we use the skills, knowledge, and capability that only resides in the business constituency to can ensure that South Africa can optimally deal with the vaccination program? We have been very disappointed with the delays that have occurred, due to the J&J vaccine, but we are absolutely delighted that we are now starting to actually roll that out again. We're looking forward to the 17th of May, where we are going to be starting the second phase. We've been in discussions with the National Department of Health in terms of what role business will be playing to ensure that the second phase is actually implemented smoothly and that we can stick to the deadlines that we have promised the 59 million South Africans. So through Business for South Africa, there is a lot that is being done behind the scenes, because from where we're sitting as business, we do have a vested interest to see this vaccination program being successful, because failure thereof also means failure of the broader South African economy, and therefore businesses are going to be negatively impacted should that happen.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for your time this evening. That was the CEO of Business Leadership SA, Busisiwe Mavuso.